Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in Southdowns and the rest of you living in the future. And welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kal. I am Lord Kalbardr Gellir, companion of the Meridian Cross, companion of the Argent Comet, companion of the Argent Lamp, companion of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, for this episode, I am joined by my fellow bald fellow, the host, or one of the hosts of Hound and Stag, Graf Ulrich von Brandenburg. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning, Cal. How are you?
Dude, I'm bright and happy today, so just ready for some fun.
All right, so I didn't cover this in the pre-show, but I'm gonna say it now because it weirds me out. I'm in modern clothes. Can we drop the excellency thing? And if you want to call me chef, that'd be just fine too.
I get one. I get one every start of the show. That's it. We're good.
Sure.
All right. And we'll get into that in a second, Mr. Imposter Syndrome over there. All right, so Ulrich, if you will give us a little bit about you, tell us who you are, and you know why you're important.
I don't feel like I'm important at all. So I am Ulrich von Brandenburg. I am a knight, a pelican, and a royal peer. And yes, I stole the way I say that directly from Helga because it is fucking awesome. Sorry, is language a thing on this?
You're good.
All right, sweet. Because it is fucking awesome, and I love the way she says that. It just gets the point out there and then drops it. I've been in the SCA for 22 years now, just past the 22 year mark. I've done some cool stuff. I've been the Kingdom Seneschal. I'm currently the emergency replacement deputy for the Society Seneschal. Thank you. I meant to cover that. Thank you very much for having that. Because anything that I say, believe me, is just me. I'm not sure that my boss would like me to talk for, and I wouldn't try to if I could. Nope. Yeah, that's me. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm here.
There you go.
And you asked me to be here, and I'm
And you're here.
I thought you were crazy, and I'm here.
We'll talk about that in just a second. I want to address that banner stuff. So I want to make this very clear. This came up actually to me recently. First of all, I am nobody of importance. I have no offices. Well, I say that actually, I have an office within Meridies.
Stop.
So hold on.
No, stop. I absolutely despise that. I'm nobody of importance.
Okay.
I am
right.
I am no one in the SCA. We are all.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. Okay. So I hold no office of legal bearing. We'll go with that.
That's
about that. So nothing I say or any of my guests on the shows are official SCA things. This is a private channel, and all of KK production stuff are privately run channels, with the exception of Kingdom of the Outlands. Anything that His Majesty or Her Majesty says is, they're the king and queen. So you deal with that how you want to. But the rest of us, it is just us talking. So that is I want to make that very clear. And we are not here in any official capacity. We're not here doing any official things. We are here talking and just trying to dig into some meat of things that I've seen in the SCA that need to get talked about more. So that's really what we're doing here. All of that being said, so as today's show is coffee themed, for me, today's coffee of choice is Butter Pecan by New England Coffee. And that is pecan, not pecan, because we're in the South. So it is pecan. And of course, drinking it out of my Feed the Ravens mug that my Westie Bestie gave me. It's my favorite mug. So, what about you there, Ulrich? What are you drinking?
I'm not drinking anything with pecan in it, nor anything with pecan in it. It's both. It's like Caribbean and Caribbean. It can be both.
No, you
as my Spire Lily says,
they
embrace the power of and. So I am drinking 2 coffees. So I'm old, and my doctor says I can't have that much caffeine anymore.
Fair.
So I normally drink 1 cup of caffeinated coffee a day. I'm breaking the rules for you in this show, but I am drinking, and I'm going to be a little weird. I'm drinking San Francisco Bay decaf French roast as my hot coffee. And it comes in these. I'm not going to show the logo or anything, but the cool thing about it, because I don't drink much coffee, I only make it in the Keurig, but it comes in these cool compostable things, so there's no waste. Really. You can just dump the whole thing in your compost. So a lot of people have issues with Keurigs being single serve and all the trash they make. And the other thing that I'm drinking is Khalifa cold brew, because I don't sip coffee. I practically guzzle coffee.
Yep.
So if I had just had one cup, I would not make it through your show unless your show was 5 minutes long.
Well, that's our show, folks. Have a great day. Let's go. Yeah. All right. So so that's why, like, I have two sizes. I have this cup that I use for a sort of regular show, and if I know it's going to be a deep one, I'll break out the fister, like the big one. But I think we'll be good for today.
Is phrasing's not a thing?
Phrasing is definitely a thing. I said it. We're moving on. All right. So today's topic, this is one that I think that we've sort of already touched on now. We're talking about imposter syndrome. I want to start off with the funny story about how when I asked you the response I got. So I said, hey, Ulrich, we should talk about imposter syndrome. And you're like, Cal, that's a great topic, but I'm not at all the person that should be talking about that. And I'm like, all right, I guess, well, if you got another topic, let me know when you want to do something, And you virtually walked away. Tell me about the 24 hours between those messages, if you will, please.
So I'm going to go back a little bit before that. Sure. We were talking about, I had been on Ask the Knights Live, and I'd been talking with John the Bear Killer about being on it. And he was like, that's a show I wouldn't mind doing. And I was like, okay, well, if you'd like to be on there, I can talk to the guys and we can, sure, we can set up something. And I know that you guys put 2 people on at a time on that show. So I started listing nights that he could be on with. He was like, well, I mean, I don't know. Well, that wouldn't be too bad. And then I was like, okay, John, do you just want to be on with me? He's like, that'd be great. Why don't we do that? So to me, and it may not be true at all because, it's John. It's, that when I told you the story, I was like, and that's totally his imposter syndrome talking.
Right.
His, if you're going to do the talking, then, to get me on the show, then, or to get the show to happen, then, I should be on with you because I'm not, he's the president of the freaking SCA. And he's, he is
the John legend. The Bear Killer. Just
right. And so, him, not wanting to, and it's part of why he's in a humility order, right? It just comes along with that. And so when you asked about that, because we had a short conversation about imposter syndrome there, and we've had some in the after shows on Between Two Peers where we talked about that stuff. And then we had that conversation, and then you asked me, and I was like, So later on that afternoon, I'm talking to my wife, and I'm explaining to her, that, hey, Cal had asked me to be on, and it was, it was on imposter syndrome, but I told him that, he should, find someone else, maybe Helga. She's had conversations on that. She'd be great. And she would be great, clearly better than I am. She wouldn't be rambling like this. And my wife just through the entire thing just does this, the entire conversation. Just deadpan staring at me.
Yep.
And at the end, she goes, so you don't think you'd be good at it? You're telling me that's my imposter syndrome talking. And she just goes, just raised an eyebrow and looked at me like, I don't really think I need to say anything else. And turned and walks out of the room. I'm just like,
that's what we call the Cal. Actually, she popped and then walked away.
Yep. So, I sent you a note and said, my wife pretty much says that that's my imposter syndrome talking, and I should do the show. And this is how my life works, actually.
You go, no, I shouldn't, and your wife goes, but you should. Yeah,
but you should.
So for those watching, let's sort of get into what imposter syndrome is, and then we'll sort of talk about dealing with it. So for me, I think the short version is imposter syndrome is the idea of that and it comes with, and there's a whole piece of this with the idea of toxic humility too that pairs with it. That's sort of a thing, right? Because humble and toxic humility and toxic humility are two opposite ends of a spectrum that we'll get into in a minute. But the idea that you're not good enough for the thing you're doing or the thing you're being asked to do, right? And sometimes like there's a piece of logic of, okay, I am not skilled enough to do this, to do the job, right? That is a fair thing to admit to yourself, right? So if somebody says, hey, Cal, we've got a burning building, I need you to come throw on a fireman's suit, and I'm good. I have no training in being a fireman. I can admit that, and that's not even being humble. It's like I have no clue. But hey, Cal, can you come help me run a web show? Okay, I know how to do that, right? That's a thing I know how to do. Me saying that I'm not good enough for that, that's the imposter syndrome talking, right? So is that sort of the short version, or do you think is there a better way to sum that up?
So there's all right. Talking about imposter syndrome, one of the things people with imposter syndrome do is they feel like they're winging everything, but as they go through that, they go out. What I did, and what a lot of people, one of the things is you go out and you do a ton of research, right? So that at least in your mind, what you're saying is at least it looks like I might know what I'm talking about. So that people, for me, it's the fear that at any point someone's going to go, aha, I knew he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And they're going to come and they're going to show up and they're going to, in the middle of, court where I'm reading a kingdom law change and I stumble over something, they're going to be like, aha, I knew you were crap. And now you can't do that job anymore. Or it's the feeling that you're not good enough. It's the feeling that you're going to be exposed. Anxiety is one of the things. A lot of it comes from abusive relationships in your past.
Yes. Dig.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a whole. It can be a whole bunch of stuff. And I happen to have. You can tell by the glare that I've gone to a white screen on this. Yep. I happen to have 5 things for showing that might tell you you have imposter syndrome. Negative self-talk, downplaying your achievements or accomplishments, or as you alluded to, toxic humility or right. False humility,
right?
Which is a real. A lot of times false humility is actually your imposter syndrome going, you are not good enough. Pass that compliment on. Yep. Neil Armstrong rather famously said, I don't belong. He's in a room with Neil Gaiman and they're talking and Neil Armstrong doesn't understand why he's in the room with all these famous people. All he did was went where he was told.
Right. He happened to be the guy. Yeah. Right.
He happened to be the guy, but he was the fucking guy.
Yeah.
That's why you're there. So being doubtful of yourself in positive situations, and really, there's this thing that happens where someone asks you, like the show, where someone asks you to do something, and you're like, I'm not an expert at that. I should not, even if I deal with it on a daily basis, right. I shouldn't be the one who talks about that.
Right.
You should get someone who's better at it than I am.
Because that person clearly is, and you're correct. I'm sure there is somebody out there better than you at this conversation, and there's somebody out there better than me than this conversation. You're correct on both those points. Right. But so that you actually there's 2 really interesting points I want to hit on there.
Okay.
Actually, we'll hit that last one first. So I did a show a month or so ago about the idea of perfect getting in the way of done.
Yes.
Right. So that's that. So like you may not be the best person, but you are the person that's available, that has enough knowledge to do the job, and that fits other criteria, right? So, and this is something that's sort of off the topic, but for the idea of doing a show, I think somebody not only knows the topic but can be personable on camera, right? Because if I had somebody here that didn't know how to talk or didn't know how to really get through a conversation, this is a much harder conversation to have, even if they're an expert in their field, right? You need somebody who's good on camera. So you're right. You may not be the best at this, but you have enough skills overall around that out. And I had you there that day and having that conversation. Therefore, you were the one that was best for that role in that minute. The other thing you touched on just then was the idea of the humility, right? The toxic humility. And this has already happened twice in this show now. Don't use the titles. Oh no, I'm just Shep. I'm not His Excellency Ulrich. I'm just Shep, right? And so Helga and I have had this conversation. So Helga and I very early in our relationship, or in our sort of our mentor-mentee relationship, she did that same thing. She's like, "Oh no, it's not your grace. Never your grace." I was like, "I will your grace you, because within this society, you're that guy." She's my Neil Armstrong, right? She's that celebrity for me, right? So yeah, so you and I are two human beings that both go to work Monday morning that have zero differences in our lives, but within the society, I am Lord Kalbardr, you are Graf Ulrich. That is your station. This is mine. And I'm not gonna like lick your boots because of that. However, I am gonna show you some deference because of it, because that's important to me as a role player, right? And that, so the idea of the humility of that, whereas don't demand it every time, right? That's the difference.
Right.
If you were to demand me call you Graf Ulrich all the time, that would be being a dick about it.
Right.
But allowing me to call you that when I want to is, sort of fitting into that role.
So you're right. And I have to personally make a delineation because of my mental spaces. When I'm in a t-shirt,
right?
I can talk about SCA things. We can have these discussions on SCA subjects, but I'm not in the mental headspace of dealing with accepting the whole. There's a deference that can be made, and I don't think I've ever required anyone to call me that, but I've required my squires to call people that, and to lead it. If you're going to start a conversation, you start with their title, and then they can become, Elenon or whatever. But start with evening, Grace, and then later on in the conversation, if you refer to them Elenon, that's fine. Right. But give them the lead in, acknowledge their accomplishments, and absolutely, I'm all for that. But my big thing is when I'm in a t-shirt, I'm much more chef than I am Ulrich. We're the same person. We have the same opinions on life. There's not much difference in us at all, except for one has a station and one doesn't. And one has a station in a pretend game. Let me be clear. One has a station in a pretend game and zero power whatsoever. And the other one still has zero power and doesn't have a station in a pretend game. Right. That's the difference in the two. But
which is really interesting, especially within our organizations, because there's sort of two different power structures you look at too, right? We have the royalty, the kings, queen, baron, and baroness's power structure, and I get there's no power in the SCA, whatever. Get past that, cool. There is power in the SCA. It is perceived and it is given, but there is still power structure. But then there's also the seneschal's business presidents, right? That's a power structure that you are part of both of, right? So you have a royal title that is in a bestowed peerage and two bestowed peerages that gives you some power within the role play structure. But you're also have been kingdom seneschal and are now a seneschal of in a society level, right? That gives you some power in that structure. It may be minute, I get, but still, it's a thing that exists. How do you separate that for you in the Ulrich versus Shep conversation? Like, which is Ulrich one and Shep the other?
So, for me, the non seneschal side of things, the royal peer, the knight, and then the bestowed peerages means. All right. First off, the royal peer means I had a really good day. Right. I practiced really hard. I tried really hard. I applied that prowess and ability, and I accomplished something. And I had a really good day, and I was successful at doing a job for a year. Mm. And that's a portion that people miss. And I was successful, meaning I didn't get thrown out of the SCA. I was successful at doing a job for a year, because that's what the royal peerage is for. And then some two groups of people lost their minds on two different separate days and decided that I should be parts of their organization or of their group for other works and efforts that I did. And I have imposter syndrome issues with that are entire stories of their own. But that's all those really do. I don't really see them too much as power. They acknowledge me as, for a lack of a better phrase, to an extent, a subject matter expert on these things. And I'm going to say this now because I'm going to struggle with it the entire time. I'm terrified that I'm going to come off as an arrogant prick during this show, and I'm trying desperately not to. So if I do, please call me on it.
The fact that you showed up to have this conversation means you were not an arrogant prick. Let me just say that. That is the fact that you're having this conversation means you were not that. So continue.
The seneschal stuff, there is a power there, but that power is mainly to stop things from going into illegal places.
Right.
Be that illegal through the SCA governing documents, or making sure they don't go off the rails in a modern governing documents, i.e. the law side of things. When I was Kingdom Seneschal, that was my main two requirements of the job are make sure the kingdom doesn't break corpora or kingdom law without first changing kingdom law so that it can be broken, which is a whole nother line of things.
You don't break rules; you just rewrite them, right? That's how it works.
Right, but you can't break them until you rewrite them. If you try to do them before you change them,
right,
then you're breaking them, and you can't do that. And there's a whole, and that's against the first set. That's against the corpora, which is the first set of rules or the governing documents. And then making sure that no one breaks a modern law.
Right.
My current job with society is really, and I'm going to say the same thing I said earlier, it's the most voyeuristic job I've ever had. It's to watch, pay attention, and be prepared to step in if I have to, and pray to God that, or whoever, pray to whatever that makes you happy. For me, it's pray to God, but whatever. Hope against hope that I never have to step into that job, because Liz is a fucking dynamo.
Right.
But that's, there's absolutely zero power in that, except to be prepared to step in if I'm needed.
Right.
I can occasionally, people will come to me and ask me questions, and I have to make sure that when I answer, I say, in my personal opinion.
Right, that's an important phrase.
Right. In my personal opinion, if you have any serious questions, please ask the Society Seneschal. This is not a, I can't do interpretations of society or kingdom law. I can't do any of that. I'm just a backup.
Right. You're the understudy, essentially.
I'm the understudy in a play.
Yeah.
And occasionally my boss will go, "Hey, look at this and tell me what you think. Should I play this like this, more of a Macbeth feel, or should I play it more of a Family Guy feel?"
It's like you occasionally get to run lines backstage. That's about
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so with that comes this feeling of, even though I've done these jobs,
right,
why the hell do you want me for this job?
Right.
Why am I here? Why would you want me for this kind of responsibility? Right. I rather famously didn't get the job, there's the job you want and the job you get, right? Which aren't necessarily the same. I desperately wanted to be, not desperately, but I wanted to be, I was willing to be, I put in for Kingdom Realm Marshal years, for 3 or 4 times that it was available, and never got it. And it was told to me straight up, "You're too volatile and reactionary for that job." So then I was asked to be Kingdom. I put in for Kingdom Seneschal as a joke. And then later on was actually asked, once I found they had other people that had put in for it, I was like, all right, good. I'm good. Those people are more qualified than I am.
Right.
And they still are. That's not imposter syndrome talking. They had better qualifications for the job than I did.
Well, I think let's look at that word, better versus different, right? Because I think if you're looking at a job of fireman, for instance, like a job that is sort of a concrete, complete task, there's some better qualifications to be a fireman. 400-pound overweight, won't fit in the helmet dude versus.
Why you gotta call me out like that?
Right, I know, right? Having previously been one of those, I can say that. Versus the fresh out of college, ripped abs, flowing hair fireman, like that's a much better person for that job, right?
Right.
in our game, though, especially when you're looking at management roles, right? Yes, there are some skills that are going to make you better suited for some of the jobs we have, whether it's seneschal or hell, even herald, right? Because like even as a herald, like a large part of the herald job is reporting and like paperwork and shit. A lot of the SCA is paperwork. As much as we hate it,
depends on which herald.
right. See, some of them have more paperwork than others.
Right.
So knowing how to use Excel or knowing how to use Google Docs would make you, better suited for the job. But there's also a lot of things that would even, apples to oranges would make you better to be a herald doing the paperwork, right? Or better to be a seneschal. So like being good with people and being good with paperwork, right? There's some differences there, right?
So the issue, this particular issue, and sometimes it's what the person who's going to fill that position is looking for, and I think that's what worked out for me.
Right.
Sorry, I missed the flash up there, but
it's okay. So I think Runa was bringing up a comment that I don't know where it came from, but she's making it pointedly towards you. So,
yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. But so one of the people who had put in for it had someone who had done the job before and done the job well, and the other person knows policy. Was certainly a policy, what I call a policy wonk. Right. I don't know what point I became a policy wonk, but I am one. So
you accumulated over time. I think it's just
I did
builds up.
I think the reason Their Majesties Rhiannon and Bryce wanted me for that position was because of my previous experience as Crown, and the ability to divorce myself from my opinion. Not that these two other fine folks didn't have that, but for whatever reason they decided part of what I represent should try that position. I don't know exactly what it was, but I both thanked them and cursed them at the same time for that.
You had a rough couple of years, if I recall, in that job. It was a very tumultuous couple of years. We won't get into, but yeah,
right.
I saw bits and pieces of it. So so I think what you said there. So you had a skill that they were looking for. So they may have had something in mind, something they were trying to sort of accomplish in their reign, or knew the SCA needed. I think that's an important role of the Crown and of the Seneschal, is sort of the. So the little guy on the totem pole at the local level, like in my little box, I don't see everything, right? I've seen, like, I've peeked behind the curtain, so I know what's back there, right? But I'm not sat behind the curtain like you have. I think it's one of the important roles of the Crown is being able to see that from that bigger level. So they came to you and said, "Hey, we want you to do this because we know what's going on. Right. We see some things, and even though that, Bob over there is better with spreadsheets and is a project manager and blah blah blah. You have this skill that we think is going to be better in this situation, right? So I think that was important. And that's so and I think and to give you a compliment, they were correct. You were the best for that role at the time.
Thanks.
No
to get back to the imposter syndrome side of it, though, so there were things that when that naming came out, when I was named, and later on when I did the job, there were people that throughout it you doubt yourself. So one of the things for imposter syndrome folks is they strive for perfection because we don't feel like we don't feel like we're capable of doing the job sometimes, or even if we feel like we're capable but we're not sure, we think someone's better, we strive really hard to be the best at it. We strive for perfection.
Right.
So we do a lot of study. I read Corpora so many times, so horrible. I read Kingdom Law so many times, which if you're ever suffering from insomnia, I really suggest you grab a copy of Corpora and Kingdom Law, maybe a handbook or two. If you make it through those, then without falling asleep, then perhaps there's a job for you in the Pelican at some point in the future. Because I couldn't do it without. I had to read them by section to be able to do that and stay awake. But you walk through places and you hear, I can't believe they appointed Ulrich. That guy, he's just a stick jock. And you hear that stuff because I don't know if you know this about the SCA, but we're not quiet. And do you hear it? Do they say it intentionally? Do they not? It doesn't matter. So there are people out there who are doubting you, or you get the compliment later on. Well, you did a much better job at that than I expected you to.
Oh, that's yeah.
Right. So all of these things build up for the next job that you get or the next thing that's going on, and they're always or worse yet, you've ever been in a meeting with a person who's clearly unprepared, is clearly, even though they're trying really hard, is clearly just straight up talking out their ass, and you're like, I don't want to be that person.
Right.
I am I that person? I think I may be that person. And so we strive really hard. I told you this in the pre-show. I have sheets of notes out here in front of me that I want to be able to reference just in case we cover that portion of this conversation. Right. I have 8 tabs open on my second monitor so that I can talk about certain things that I made sure I looked into, because I want if you ask me a question on something, I want to be able to reference something to give you an answer, because I want it to be perfect and not necessarily just good enough. Right. This is the issue that we talked about. Can you get the job done? I don't care if it's perfect. Can you just get the job done for me?
And so that's something, and something that I talked about in that show was that that's the way I approach dealing with my own imposter syndrome, right? So because I want to be super prepared, and I was doing that for so long that I realized that I was never actually able to finish. I never felt I was good enough in a preparation. So I was like, okay, I'm clearly doing the job well. I'm doing these things I'm doing, and I'm getting out of it at the end of it. Let me back this preparation down some. Maybe I don't need that as much, right? So you have 85 pages of notes and 75 tabs. I have literally nothing. Because this is part of it is, and one of the things I wanted out of this conversation is I want just the honesty of the people. Sure. And this is whereas it's meant to be educational, it's not meant to be necessarily. We're not digging into philosophy here or psychology. It's how do we deal with it? And I realized that was something that I needed to not worry about as much, because people want to hear what I had to say about it, right? We want to talk about it, and just having those real conversations was actually more important than me reading, here's what Dr. Freud says about this thing, right? Anyone else can go Google this too, and they can go Google what imposter syndrome is and how to deal with it. It is more important for me to have this conversation. So I realized I was like, okay, I can back that down, and there's also a sort of a gray area of, okay, here's not enough, here's too much, right?
Right.
Settle somewhere in the middle, right? So there you go. There's tip number 1 of dealing with imposter syndrome: prepare. Don't over prepare.
Right.
Don't under prepare. Just prepare.
Right.
And that's going to be different for everybody.
At some point, it's going to be good enough. One of the things that imposter syndrome people do is they micromanage.
Right.
So I force myself, and if Jessica Sheffield, if Jessica Osprey is watching, I promise I try to not micromanage, and I fail. Yep. So last week's Hound and Stag show, where you were on and I was off doing the board stuff, was I at some point I just I went to the group and I was just like, I've got too much stuff going on. Can anyone else handle this? And Jessica just went, I've got this. You don't have to try, and you don't have to handle everything. And she took off and did her amazing controlling of the horizontal and the vertical, and making sure that everything came off well. And it was freeing for me. I was able to be in the meeting that I needed to be in, watch that show on the second screen to keep an eye on, because I couldn't let go.
Right.
Not that I thought that I couldn't do anything. I wanted to see it. I wanted to be part of the show, because you want to do all of the things. Right. And you just had to let go at some point, and realize that also in all of the offices, the ability to learn to delegate. If you try to do everything, then you will drive yourself insane, and you'll get in some of your previous shows where burnout is an issue, and and the more you try to control everything, the more slips through, and the more that you miss, and the more mistakes you make. And then all of a sudden, those people talking in the back are right a little bit because you're actually gripping too hard. So other issues that come with all of this crap.
So that's interesting. Okay, so I think, yeah, delegation, that's an interesting thing to look at, especially within our society. So like, obviously, as in a mundane job, you're talking about, at work, you have subordinates you delegate things to, or you have other team members you delegate things to. Like, we all do that, and at least we should. If you're not delegating properly, please God, go take a class on delegation, because yes. Within the society, we have trouble doing that, right? Especially so I'll speak to this as the non-peer, as the unbelt in the room, right? Obviously, like, I want to do stuff to get recognized. I want to do stuff so that people know who I am. I want to do stuff to be a peer. I want to be peer-like. I want to progress on that path, right? You're always like, the squires are trying to do more, the proteges are trying to do more. We want to hold the offices. We have our resumes, and then you have people who become peers who do one or two things. They either, or it's one of three. You have the ones who keep doing the things because they don't feel like they deserved it yet. They keep trying to earn their belt or their medallion, which means nobody else gets to do anything because you have the same peers doing all the things all the time.
Right here.
Right, exactly. Just gonna throw that in your lap there. Or you have the peers who stop doing all the things and just become basically armchair quarterbacks, right? Or you have the ones in the middle who start delegating their tasks out. Go, oh, hey, you want me to be the next, Kingdom Herald? Have you considered this person?
Right.
Whereas, yes, I could do that job and I'd be happy to do it, but this person needs that job more than I do, right? And that's not imposter syndrome, whereas it looks like it, right? That's very much looks like imposter syndrome. Oh no, they'd be better at it. They're better for it.
Right.
In this situation, because I as a peer, I as this person who's done that thing, don't need to do it again. They need to. So I think that's an important part of delegation. As I think, looking at it like from a peer to their associates or peer to other associates, something to look at. What do you think? So
absolutely, when my predecessor for the Kingdom Seneschal, Alwyn, he was very much I will do all of the things, and he was and he got a lot of the stuff done, but he also burned himself out.
Right.
So when I came in, I reached out. At first I did what I was trained to do. Right. He had this list of things that he did on a monthly basis. This list of things so I thought that's how things had to work, and I started doing all of these things. And then I had a conversation with Sir Griffin, and he said, why are you trying to do everything yourself? And I was like, because I have to. It's right here. It's written out. This is how these things are done. I said, there's a couple of things that I want to make a couple of deputies for. And he said, stop trying to do everything yourself. So one of the first things we did was we put together a Facebook group full of old dead Kingdom Seneschals and put them all in there so that they could tell me where I was screwing up, so that I could have subject matter experts that I could go to. Because it was an odd situation. I couldn't really go to Alwyn for just Kingdom stuff because he was the Society Seneschal. Right. And once you tell him then he's involved.
Plausible deniability is the word at that point.
So I did that, and then we just started setting up. We started setting up offices left and right. Now I know that we talked about earlier. Kingdom law says you have to advertise for all the offices,
right?
And you do for the greater offices and the lesser offices. Your deputies, not so much. So especially when you're first setting up the position. So I started finding people who could do jobs and would get them recognition, but could do the jobs and could handle being in that position and the spotlight that came with it, right, to make my job easier. And man, they made me look good,
right,
in a lot of ways. And I work all the time to try and make sure that people understand that they did all that work. I was just lucky enough to be able to find talent or ask people, hey, I'm looking for someone who can do this. Do you guys know anybody who would be good at that? And sometimes we put stuff out. We put offices out for, hey, can anyone find that? But yeah, all of that. There's a great Venn diagram kind of thing that says, things things people think and then things other people. And it goes all the way around that person. Things other people know, and the overlap comes into the things And so I might know a little bit about a lot of these little things, but if I can find people who know a lot about those and put them into those positions, then it helps get the job done. And so your job starts to become managing those things, and then making sure that those people who do all that work get that recognition,
right,
for the work that they do. I really hope, by the way, I'm in that third set of peers that you talked about, and not the first or the second. The ones who try to help other people. I don't know that I am.
I think you literally just described the exact thing. So yes, you are, or at least have been. So, and I talk about that when I do actually when I'm interviewing. So I've been recently interviewing. So I just started a new job mundanely. So I've had a lot of interviews in the last 6 months. One of the things I talk about as a project manager, because that's what I do mundanely, is that I don't know everything, and I know I don't know everything. But one of my skills as a project manager is knowing who knows the things that I don't know. So when I'm in a company, if okay, you have a software development question about this, C#, blah, blah, blah. I have no clue. I am not a coder. But I know a guy who is. Let me go ask him this question, and I'll get the answer for you, right? Or I'm going to ask him what I need to do to execute this project on that thing. Subject matter experts are important. And that's either as advisors. So you like you're saying, you grabbed a council of advisors of past Kingdom Seneschals. They are experts at that job. Even if they were shitty at it, even if they were the worst Kingdom Seneschal ever, they still did it, so they know what happens. And having that,
I didn't put that person in my group.
Fair. Well, even if you had, right? Even if you had the worst one, even the worst person at the job is still better than someone who hasn't done it, because they can tell you what they did, and that's the bad way to do it. Right.
Everyone can teach you a lesson, even if the lesson is to not do it that way.
Right. To do the exact opposite of what they say. That's important. Okay. So so that's another. And I think that's a really interesting thing to look at when you're looking at imposter syndrome of that sort of delegation. It's okay to delegate, right? Even as the unpeer, even as the unbelt in the room, right? If you're in a role that has too much work for you, it's better to delegate it and succeed as a team than to fail on your own, right? You don't have to be the only person that's doing it. And I'm saying this to me. Let me put the mirror in front of my face, because good God, do I not do that enough?
Sure, and it's something that we deal with all the time as knights and trainers for our squires. I've got squires who are short and big. I've had squires who are tall and thin. I have had female squires. I had left-handed squires. I've had and I can't teach a left-handed squire very much about being left-handed, but I know a lot of left-handed fighters who can teach a left-handed squire about how to deal with this as a left-handed squire, how to deal with this as a tall squire, how to deal with this as a short squire, or not squire, but fighter. Yeah. So you find people. Sometimes your job as a knight isn't just to train them your way, but it's to find the people who can train them in the portions that they need that you can't.
Right.
So finding them some.
I was like Baru, Tim, Robert, Glenn, and Locke. There you go. There's your left, your tall one and your short one. There you go. You have a full set.
I came up with Caspar and Ailenon as Caspar is my best friend coming in. Ailenon is as one of my mentors, who is a much better trainer now than he was when I was a squire.
Right.
He was good at Zen stuff, and he could he'd be like, just make your arm bend in these 7 different places and then hit them in the head. I don't understand why you can't do that, because my arm only bends in 3 different places. But now he's much better at it. But if it's a left-handed fire. So Baru, you mentioned Baru. If you want, Baru teaches an advanced left-handed fighter thing, because Baru only fights like Baru. He doesn't, doesn't fight like your. So to learn, but knowing that said, Baru taught me to throw a rap. I couldn't throw a rap without hurting myself before. My knight couldn't teach me. My friends couldn't teach me. Aileron couldn't teach me. Caspar couldn't teach me. Seth couldn't teach me. Every time I threw a wrap, I hurt my wrist. Brew walked me through it. He took my hand, and he just moved me through the positions and said, do it like that. If you do it these other ways, that's why you're hurting yourself. Sorry.
No.
The fighter conversation happened.
46 minutes. We talked about stick. We're good. We're good.
All right. I'll stop.
We're still better off than the actual show we tried not to talk about stick talk. Yeah. So, okay. So I think that's another, so looking at imposter syndrome, delegate, know who your subject matter experts are, or know if you are one. Like, be okay with being that, right?
Yes.
So if you've done a job, either mundanely or in the SCA, congratulations, you're not an expert, right? Especially in so maybe you may not be an expert in your mundane world. Like, you're not an expert project administrator or like group president or whatever, right? You may not be those things in your mundane world or what they'd consider an expert. Within our society, in a group of volunteers, where sometimes we work with what we got, right? Especially in a smaller group. Like, if you've got a group of 6, 10, 8, 8 people, that's your active group. Congratulations, you're the expert now because you're the only one that's there. And at that point, that's going back to the perfect in the way of done. You're the one that can do the job. So whereas, there may be 100 other people in the world that are better at that role, even within Meridians, that are better than you. You're the one that's showing up to do it. Congratulations, you're not the expert.
Welcome to being in a volunteer organization.
Right. And because you're the one willing, and that makes you the best at it. Now, are there things you can do to be better at that job? Well, yes, of course. There are 100 things you can do to be better at that job. And there's people you can talk to. There's classes you can take. There's shows to watch on YouTube that are talking about these subjects. Do that. Go find those topics and improve your skills so that you're more comfortable. But just accept that at that point you're the expert because you're willing. Sometimes being willing is the point.
I'm going to get back to the toxic humility thing, the false humility thing, because it's something that I really struggle with. So when I was a kid growing up, I played football. Not particularly great at it, but good enough at it. And part of that came in. My stepfather used to say, when I go get ready for a game, he'd be like, "All right, remember, I'm going to give you $5 for every tackle you make tonight." I'm like, "Awesome! I'm gonna make some money tonight because I'm going to get on defense. I'm going to get 5 or 6 tackles. Probably a good bet." I play the game. I come back. How many tackles you get? Got 4 tackles. All right, great. Here's $20. How many plays did you play? All right. Well, I played 20 plays. All right. So 100 minus 20s 80. So you owe me $80. So give me the 20 back and you find the other 60. Because that was my stepdad's way of getting me to be better.
Right.
But what it actually made me was feel like I wasn't good enough to get the job done that he expected me to get done, which fed so when I would come back the next day and I get at practice and I'd get the stickers for the tackles that went on your helmet, I didn't feel like I deserved them because I owed them for the other 16 plays that I didn't get tackles on.
Right.
So when someone said, "Hey man, good job on those 4 tackles," I'm like, "Man, I'm just doing what I need to do. I'm just trying my best. The answer becomes, I'll try to be better."
Right.
So here we are, the next thing you know, it's 20, 30 years later, I'm getting knighted. And my response is, "Are you guys serious? What? I lost way too much for that to happen."
Right.
So there's this great accomplishment that happens, and all you feel at the time is appreciative, but that you don't deserve it.
Right. But I can be better still. I could do more. Right?
I could do. I don't deserve that yet. I don't. Yeah. I want to deserve that, but I don't deserve it yet.
Right.
And I still feel that way. There's a level of times when you're like, clearly you've probably done enough. It's when you're on a trip to an event, and you've won crown, you've done these good things, and your buddy tells you, everyone was surprised when you won, and he means it as an honest compliment. Everyone was surprised when you won, because there's a lot of people out there that thought that you weren't, you were just that guy that fought in crown, and you were the bar for what what it was to be a knight. You weren't actually good enough to win crown. You're like, I'm not saying this as a woe is me thing. I'm just trying to give you examples of things that in the game that we play can damage that self-confidence, and it causes this imposter syndrome to rise. This is the portion where I'm worried about coming off as an arrogant prick. Where it causes that imposter syndrome to rise, regardless of the fact that you are accomplishing these things. You don't feel like you deserve them because of the things that you hear other people saying, and you have to find that level of self-confidence. My grandmother's favorite actor was Jack Palance, who had a great old aftershave commercial where he slapped it on his face and he said, "Confidence is sexy." And it's right.
Right.
But Aquavelva, why I remember that, I have no idea. But so you have to.
Corner officially sponsored by
faking it. Yeah, it comes to that point of faking it till you make it. Right. You have to feel confident somehow, so you start to fake the confidence to get the confidence where it needs to be. Because if you weren't accomplishing these things, if you weren't doing these things, these other people wouldn't recognize it.
Right.
So. Rick Rafin told me, actually, in my vigil, I confessed this issue to him. I was like, "Rick, I don't deserve this." And he said, "Well," I'm not going to try and do a Rick voice. He said, "Well, 40 people said you did. It's the height of arrogance to tell them they're wrong."
Yep.
So
this actually came up yesterday between two peers on their Discord. I'll drop this hot topic. So we're talking about a fifth period right now, right?
Right.
The thing came out resolution of the bod, and one of the main objections is we don't need it. So the discussions come up a lot about that recently. And one of the
made it an hour.
Huh? I know, right?
Almost made it an hour before you hit me with the hot topic. All right.
Yeah. Actually, we're not going to talk about that actually, because we're talking about what I want to talk about is you being a pelican, and how being a knight first and then becoming a pelican, and how that's, because that's, I think, part of the thing, right? So in the history of the SCA, the knights were made as the first peers, as the peers we all need, because fighting was the thing we all did. And then they went, well, yeah, but some people don't fight. Okay, we're doing all this art stuff. Okay, let's make the laurels, because that gives us the other stuff we do. And they went, well, crap, some people don't do any of that, but are still amazing people. Let's make the pelicans, right? So that's a very dumbed down version of how we got our peerages, but that's sort of how it works, right?
I was about to say, there's some people that'll argue that, but yes, I'm
with
you.
That's the very dumbed down version of how those peerages came to exist.
Right.
So, which, and I've had this conversation with people off air, and I'll have it here, where it's weird that the pelican becomes like well, you're not good at any of these things. Here, we'll make you a pelican because you're still an amazing person, but you're not good at fighting. You're not good at art, so we'll make you a pelican because you're just amazing at just showing up, right? And again, that's not my opinion. It's sometimes has been seen as that. So when the other peerages have come up, everybody's like, well, I mean, they should just be doing better at being a laurel, doing better at being a pelican. So that conversation's happened. So yesterday I was talking to actually Master Lash. So Lash will actually be on in 2 weeks with me talking about Fringies. And spoiler alert, there's a new show coming. Because I don't have enough shows that I currently manage. Thank you. But so one of the things he said to me as a member of the show board, he said it was his job to do service, that he didn't, he's like, oh, well, it's my job. I don't need to be made a pelican because that's part of being a knight is the service, right? And he's correct, right? As a peer, you're supposed to serve. One of the points I made to him, and that I've made that I very angrily ranted on my Facebook the other day, was that there's a level of prowess, right? All peers should do service. All peers should do arts. All peers should participate in fighting. And I'm gonna, whether you're watching or helping or fighting, participate in fighting, right? Because that's the three things we do in this society. And I again, fighting in the giant air quotes of whatever fighting thing you do.
Sure.
But there's a level of prowess in service that is equivalent to being a pelican, right? So if you take prowess of a knight with stick and prowess of a pelican with service and compare them, right? It's the prowess level. Yes, all knights do service, but like, so you talk about, when you became a knight, you didn't feel worthy. And then clearly when you became a pelican, you still didn't feel worthy.
Nope.
Because it was just part of your job as a knight. And you didn't say that directly, but I'm sure that's part of it. It's just, well, I'm just doing service because it's what I do. And,
so the SCA has given me a lot over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, it has given me a lot. It has given me some of the best friends that I never would have met outside the SCA. I don't know that I wouldn't, but I probably wouldn't, or certainly wouldn't have become as good of friends with them. I've learned a lot. I've become a lot better person because of the SCA. And yes, service is part of all of the peerages, I believe. The issue becomes at what level. A lot of folks, someone, for example, a laurel is the Kingdom A&S officer, or a knight is or a member of the Order of Defense is the Kingdom War Marshal. That's service in their track, right? And some people see service in multiple tracks, but it's is it kingdom level service? Is it society level service? Is it local level service? How much service? These are all things that the Pelican deal with. And I've only been to a couple of virtual meetings. I've actually sat in an actual meeting, but I have had my banana pudding, so I'm happy about that. But it goes to a situation where, on a personal, speaking for myself personally, when I saw Helga's diatribe, and it was a diatribe, it's a very well-written, well-stated soapbox. I was like, without even seeing who had written it, I knew that it was Helga.
Right.
And she has a point. Had we been made all knights to begin with, and then knights of different things, that would have solved a lot of our problems. I don't know that now we can go back and fix that. Whether we if we could, it would probably fix things, but I don't think you're getting out of the knight pelican laurel setup anymore. I'll answer the banana pudding thing in a bit.
You can do that in a second.
I don't think we can get out of that set. I think we missed the boat a little bit when we made the Order of Defense, and we make sure that there aren't any way to get shot from behind right here. They probably should have been made part of the chivalry.
You heard it here, folks. He said
it. I know. Look,
I agree with you.
Everything martial should fall in the martial umbrella. Everything service, and this would fix your issue, right? Because it would, we would have to deal with the combat archers and the target archers and the equestrians, who all do great things. And there are boundaries, there are obstacles to becoming peer-like in those situations and participating at the certain levels. But I don't know that we can put that genie back in the bottle. I think that genie is gone out, and I'm going to, once again, I'm going to quote Helga from a conversation that she and I had, that that would require it to move the food dish too far away, and no one wants to do that anymore because we've got our food dishes right here in front of us. So these people, that's wrong. These people, the folks that do these activities, that's better. The folks that, right? No, that's not what I mean. Those people, no, the people who do those activities,
right,
deserve some sort of recognition for what they do. I can't make a saddle. I can barely make a belt blank, but I can make a belt blank, but I can barely make a belt blank. So what the fix is?
So and that's definitely not what I was trying to get you to answer. I'm curious. So you just said something there. So that was one of the things that Lash hit on too. It was that it's just the job of a knight to do all these things, right?
It's the job of the knight to do all these things.
Right.
The knight.
Go ahead.
It's the attitude of you do the job in front of you.
Right.
It's the same thing that got me to do the Kingdom Seneschal job. I was asked. I don't think that I would be great at that. I wanted to do the other thing. I wanted to serve, but I wanted to serve the marshal side as in the Kingdom Earl Marshal position. I would have taken a deputy spot, whatever they wanted me to do. But I was asked, even though I put in for it as a joke, because dear God, no one wants me to do this job. That's just crazy.
In fact,
I was willing to do that job because I was asked. So you do the job that's in front of you, and then in the end, if there's recognition for it, great. And you hope you did a good enough job. If they keep asking you, clearly you're doing a good enough job.
Right.
Or
that ties into the idea
to help you do the job that you're getting there through management. However you're doing it, the job is getting done, and that's the important part. The issue on the peerage side of that is, what is a knight's service and what is a laurel service and what is a pelican service? And the answer is they're all. I once pissed off a whole bunch of pelicans. Well, I once pissed off one pelican who told other pelicans, and pissed off a bunch of pelicans that way, when they asked if they could protege one of my squires. And I have a thing for one household for my squires. Right. Unless you are a foster squire or you came to me from another household, I'm not going to make you leave that household, but I don't believe in serving multiple bosses. Right. So it's my household. And I've broken that rule once, and both worked out, and I hated it. So at the same time, so I once rather infamously told that pelican that I expect more work out of my squires than I see most proteges doing. So that was a very arrogant statement of me, and I was called on it, and I apologized, and I'm owning it here. But that's what you do. But at the time, what I was seeing was the error of, at the end of a kingdom level event, someone would stand up and say, "All squires to the kitchen," because they've not done anything all day but fight. Right. Like, well, they did do other stuff all day other than fight. They showed up. They helped people set up their pavilions. They helped their knights or their households set up their stuff. They carried stuff for the water bearers to set up their stuff at the field. The proteges weren't doing that portion. The proteges were doing paperwork, which is fine. Right. They're part of the service. And and then they were called, then when they were done fighting, they were called to set up the feast hall because they needed some big, strong guys. Well, at that point in time, I had 2 female squires, but they needed big, strong guys. And that's what they would come out and say. We need some big, strong guys. So let's get some squires into the kitchen to help set up the feast hall. And now they fought all day. They set up the field. They've worked these other things. They've torn down the field. They've set up the feast hall. They've gotten a shower. They've gone to court. They've eaten. And now you want them to do the dishes. So I would stand up, or someone else would stand up and say, "That's great. All associates to the kitchen." And then we would all, and I say we, would all go to the kitchen. And you get back there, and there'd be 4 squires, a protege or an apprentice, and me. Right. Now I only went back there 2 or 3 times like that. I'm not giving myself a big kudos on that, but I would certainly say anytime someone stood up and said all squires, I would say all associates. If that's what we're doing, then this is what we're doing. But they're not slave labor either. Right. They're not.
That's an important part that I think the squires often get abused of. Now, I was over here digging for my protege belt just to throw it on my shoulders to be clear where I fit in this conversation. But
no,
and that's as someone who hasn't been to an event as a protege yet. But
right, but that it's just the way it's some biases that happen. Right. People who aren't fighters look at it as. And we've gone really far afield, but it's the service thing, right? You do the job that's in front of you. There's an expectation, right? And we need to adjust our expectations.
So when you became a pelican, did you have that moment of, "I'm just doing my job"? Like, what was your response? Because we all watched it on camera. It was a lovely ceremony that you were like both mad about and happy about it at the same time. You could see the face. like what was the thought there, and how did that imposter syndrome play into that?
So we're going to go back a little bit.
Yeah, cycle where you need to. We're good. We got time.
We're going through this. I've stepped up as Kingdom Seneschal, and people, my friends, who lovingly tease me, "Oh, you're just bucking for your pelican,"
Right.
And I'm like, "No, I'm this, because it's not why I was doing anything. I'm just serving where I'm asked. Is being recognized for the service nice? Absolutely, it's very flattering. It's and it's I'm very very appreciative of it. I'm glad to be. As much as I might tease pelicans or laurels or other knights, I'm honored to be in the two orders that I'm in. And most of these folks do fantastic jobs. I say most because some of us fail, all the time, and I'm not going to blanket there. So I didn't expect it. So I certainly didn't expect it then. I didn't really expect it at all. And when I'm going to cover the banana pudding there too.
Yeah.
When I was asked, they offered to do it at a later date because we were in Kobe. So there was a virtual court. There was only like 6 of us there, and then it happened to happen at my knight's house, at Sir Connell's house, and they needed someone to set up all the tech stuff to do the Zoom, because they couldn't carry around the tech support with them everywhere, and they wanted to have the court outdoors because we're going to have only a certain number of people, so we're all working to stay within the restrictions. So we're all there.
This is very early COVID, where we didn't even know what the hell we were doing yet with that. Yeah,
like early June.
Yeah,
June 6th, June 9th, something like that. So we're all making sure we're social distancing. I'm trying to set up. You got the crown there, and you're basically they happen to all be coming through the same area. Happen to be all be coming through the same area. I didn't know. So it's not an uncommon thing for Connell to call me out to help with the tech thing under normal circumstances. And I'm like, okay, so, and I have more tech stuff around the house. So I brought a bunch of stuff out there. We get everything set up. We're running court, and they make this offer to me now to go back and think about it, and we'll do the elevation at a later point in time. Well, there's a story that goes, years ago we were at a restaurant, and my squire brother Sir Jan Germunson, we were all going to the buffet. Oh, man, I miss buffets. We were all going to the buffet to get our food, and we were eating breakfast, and he was the last one over by the buffet, and they had started setting out lunch, and with lunch they had set out a fresh pan of nanner pudding. Now, this was a South Alabama restaurant. There was a woman of size who was the cook, who, as a man of size, we know food, and so there's a stereotype that goes with that means that nanner pudding was probably amazing. So we're all sitting at the table, and here comes Jan back with his plate of breakfast and this big bowl of nanner pudding, and we're like, "Where did you get the nanner pudding?" She said out the nanner pudding, and I'm like, "Well, you're eating it with breakfast?" He says, "A meteor could come through the roof and kill us all, and I will have had my nanner pudding." And we all immediately got up and went and got nanner pudding. So when they offered me this, what I said was, "I would like my nanner pudding now, please. Is that something that can happen?"
Yep.
And so they graciously, on the spot, agreed to find people. And I say find people, apparently they had prepped this just in case, and had people waiting. And so they rotated people out so that they could talk. And it was very nice of them. And I am very honored and flattered. And I don't understand, I understand why, because I have to play that conversation with Rick in my head every time something cool like this happens, where a group of people say that I deserve to be among them. um, because to tell them they're wrong, even though I feel that they're wrong, and so I constantly try to prove that they're right, so that it comes around to when I'm asked again to serve in this position that I happen to have now, I immediately was like, you've got the wrong person, probably someone else that you want to do this. And then I say yes, because part of it is you want to prove to yourself that that you can do those jobs. And then the other realization of if someone keeps asking you to do things, then you must be doing something right, or at least you know enough people who can do the right things that it can make it look like you can do it right.
That's important. You at least look like you know what you're doing. So right. I've had so as I mentioned earlier, I started a new job recently, and this is something I want to sort of talk to all the young associates out there, myself included, that I've noticed in my new role. I am. This is my first sort of executive level role. It's my first job as an actual manager and not just doing management stuff. Because I've done a lot of jobs where I was the tech guy also doing management work and tech guy also project managing. This is my first time just doing project management. And I was like, I'm not doing enough work. I'm sitting here in a 40-hour week and I do 10 hours of actual work. And I was like, they're going to fire me. I don't like this is they're paying me too much money for this. What the hell is going on? And my wife grabbed me and go,
police are going to get me.
Exactly. I was like, wait, and not even like, so within the SCA, like, okay, oh, they're gonna make me not the herald anymore. Oh no. And that sucks. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Right. If I get fired, that affects my life. Right. So it's like I'm having this panic attack, and my wife goes, yeah. Are they happy with what you're doing? Are you doing the job you're supposed to do? And I went, well, yeah. She went, okay. I went, oh shit, you're right. All right, cool. Like, and
I don't know what that's like at all.
I know, right? Yeah. I think I had to step back and realize that and she said things that as you get higher up, as you have more responsibility, the actual work becomes less because the weight of your decisions, the weight of the things you're doing is more. So the actual what looks like busy work, right? The day-to-day mundane work is less because the things you're doing are less. So you're talking about your new role as you know the drop dead replacement. You're right. Your actual work is nothing. You're like showing up to a meeting, hanging out, whatever, chilling, right? But however, that's a giantly important role now. That you know, it's way less work than you did as Kingdom Seneschal. It's way less work than you would have done as a local Seneschal. But it's way more important now because of the weight of that role, you know. And I realized I was like, oh shit, that's a thing to look at, right? So I think as we in the society, as we advance, as we become peers, as we become crown, as we become, you know, Kingdom Seneschals or whatever, it may look like you're doing less work because you're delegating it. It may look like you're doing less work because there's other people doing jobs. The weight of those decisions is now much more. Therefore, it's a, you know, it's okay. You deserve the paycheck, right?
Right. I went from 11 years in education to educate. Let me be clear. From education, doing tech work in education,
right?
Which, if you've ever done any kind of tech work for education, they don't actually understand how technology works, right. Nor how do they understand how to pay for technology.
It's wizardry as far as they're concerned.
It's all wizardry. They order stuff with they, in their opinion, pay way too much for technology. The technology comes in and magically it all works the next day. So I got the opportunity to change jobs after 11 years of doing that. And I worked my way up in that. And now I design audiovisual conference rooms for NASA. So that's really cool. But all of a sudden, my pay changed from education pay to private sector pay, which is incredibly different.
Right.
And now there's a part of me that even though I've got 11 years of experience, I don't feel like I'm earning that money.
Right.
Because I was working twice as hard for half as much. Now I'm working half as hard for twice as much.
Right.
But I have the experience that I earned over here for the crappy pay. that I now have over here, and I have to remind myself of that. And my boss reminds me of it, and my wife reminds me of it, and I still wonder sometimes. I'm like, they're part of that page is your knowledge.
Right.
So there's that, you suffered over here for nothing for 11 years. So
I literally moved I have 4 different degrees. I carry 4 or 3 college degrees. I literally moved them into my office so that I could see them. So right. I go, oh, look, that's why, because I have a master's degree in this subject. I am a subject matter expert in this. And I had to remind myself of that.
Right.
I think so, within the SCA, that degree is equivalent to a peerage scroll. Like, it's the same thing, right? So as a knight, you are a subject matter expert in all things fighting. Whether you think you are or not, like you might be the best glaive guy, but you know the best glaive guy. You may not be the best left-handed fighter, but you know the best left-handed fighter. Or at least the people.
Or I know someone who can teach that thing that you're trying to find. Or I know someone who can find me someone who can teach you that thing. And it may be a video. Hey, go watch this video of Baldr. He teaches this portion for left-handed fighters that
part of the skill is networking.
Networking.
Helga, that part of that being good at your job is that network.
Right. It's helping you. It's helping your students. It doesn't matter if you're the one giving the direct help.
Right.
It may just be your network being able to give them that help. And it goes to one of the things that I want to make sure we cover, which is the fake it till you make it. Everyone hates that concept of, well, you don't want to fake it. They go, you don't want to fake it till you make it. You want to present what you actually know. Well, the fake it till you make it is not presenting things that you don't know. It's giving yourself the confidence to present the things that you do know,
right?
And showing and getting past that negative portion of your mind that's going, why are you talking? You don't know anything about this, even though you've got this experience. So it goes back to the confidence, the sexy thing. If you present that you know what you're doing, and you're not actually talking out your ass, whether you think you're talking out your ass or not, then it will come across. But just like if you don't actually know what you're talking about, no matter how hard you try, it will also come across.
Right.
So, if you're continuing to do these things and people keep asking you.
Tell me the fake it till you make it thing. I think one of the things I try to do when I'm teaching in class is I up front say, okay, here's where I'm getting my information from. Here's my level of knowledge. So when I taught, I did a class on who were the Scythians. I just started studying Scythian culture. But I really want to teach class on it just because I learn best by teaching. So when I teach a class, I say, okay, here's what I'm planning to cover. Here's what I've got from it. I don't have all the right answers. Some of this may be incorrect. Some of this, I up front tell them what I know and what I know that information from. So that if something is wrong and I need to be corrected, I'll be corrected, right? So I think that's an important part of the faking it till you make it is be confident in what you know, but be clear about what you know and be clear about where it came from, right? So that it's not, here's my opinion, and also separate opinion and fact. Right. That's an important thing. Here's my opinion. Here's what I think I know. Here's what I know, right?
Right.
And if you're honest about that, I think that helps in that situation too, because it helps you show what you know, show what you think you know, and get through those conversations and not look like an asshole doing it. Because you're right. When somebody doesn't know what they're talking about and is trying to fake a subject, it is very obvious to anybody who knows anything.
Right.
You don't have to.
Right. So especially when you I'm going to go a whole bunch when you're genuine, when you're when you straight up front, look, I don't know about these things. This is what I think. This is what I think I understand about this. If you have different opinions or you have different facts or different knowledge that you can drop, clue me in on it.
Right.
It's kind of like calibration and fighting. If you take your ego out of it, then you're all kind of okay, right? You're not gonna piss off anyone.
Right.
So it's just it's just one of those things. You do the things that are in front of you, and you do them as best you can, and you're straight with the people that you're talking to. Right. It comes to in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be on Coach's Corner. I have no idea why.
Right. So,
I watch those guys.
Yeah.
I have no fucking clue why they want me on that show. but I was asked, so I'm going to go.
Right.
So, and you'll hear a lot of it there. You guys understand that I don't agree with you on this, and this, right? Or I don't know a lot about X, Y, and Z, but I know a bit about, D, E, and F.
Right.
So it's going to be a lot of that. So we'll see how that goes. But
Sean
own
actually
what you do
mentioned
know.
that the other day. He promoted that show even. So yeah, he's
Oh,
excited
really?
about it.
Cool. I'm
Right.
excited about it too, and nervous as all get out.
Right.
I think I was. It's going to sound like name dropping. I'm not really trying to name drop, but I was on the bod meeting last Sunday, and I get this message. We're doing the intros. My expectation going into that was I will sit there and I will be quiet off in my little corner of the show of the broadcast, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we're going to do introductions, so we're going to do them alphabetically. So when you get to your name, just go ahead and give a quick introduction." My heart rate now. I do 2 shows a week.
Right.
I'm on this show. I've been on multiple shows. I've given presentations in front of entire school systems. I've given presentations in front of NASA. And every time I do any of that, the first time I am nervous as all get out. So, and that's knowing it and expecting it. All of a sudden, I went from, hey, I'm okay with this. No one's really going to notice I'm here, to everyone's going to see me. My heart rate spikes. Jessica Manhattan sees that I've turned slightly red. She sends me a message in the chat. Is like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Nope."
Nope.
Because I'm terrified that the people who I know aren't impressed with my abilities or don't think that I am good enough to be there are going to show up with the fraud police and go, "I'm sorry, Ulrich doesn't belong here. You must remove him. Fraud, fake." And they're going to carry me off the bod meeting. They're going to show up at my house, carry me out of the bod meeting in fraud police handcuffs, and it's going to be horrible. That's what I'm terrified of.
Right.
Which thank you to Amanda Palmer for the fraud police concept, which is different than the phone police from KBKRP. Neither of which exist, by the way. Neither the fraud police nor the phone police either exist. It's just one of those things that all of a sudden you go from, my job is here to listen, to I'm a fraud. I don't belong here. These people, man, you listen to some of the people on the board, and these guys are lawyers, and they're CEOs, and they're doctors, and project managers. They've been, there's John as the president of the SCA, who's been, the walking on water and turning water into wine, for years. There's Liz, who's been on the board, who's been a Kingdom Seneschal, who's now the Society Seneschal, and she's amazing, and all these amazing people. And I'm like, I design audio visual conference rooms for NASA, and
admittedly, you're like rocket scientist is Jason, though. That's kind of cool. Just saying.
No, my wife is a rocket scientist. I am not a rocket.
So then you're exactly adjacent to it. Then there you go.
Right, I'm directly adjacent to one. But so it's about so there's this whole terrifying portion of, if they ever actually figure out that I don't actually know what I'm doing, that I'm just trying to then they're going to show up and haul me out. And everyone was really nice, and several people sent me messages and like, calm down, it's okay. And I made it through, and I didn't actually explode, but it's all, there's no getting over imposter syndrome. If you have it, and believe me, almost everyone does on some level,
to some degree, right?
To some degree. If you've ever experienced self-doubt, if you ever experienced that feeling of not feeling like you're good enough, you've had imposter syndrome on some level. Literally, one of the things that I've read is like 70% of the United States, of the world actually, experiences imposter syndrome in some way, shape, or form. So it's totally a thing. And if you want to find out how to deal with it, there's a ton of stuff out there. I must have watched 15 TED Talks on it. So because that's worried about coming on here and not sounding like I knew what I was talking about.
Right.
Even though you're just after genuine conversation, but
yeah. But I think we've had that. I think that's
absolutely.
That's why I started this channel. Like, so this for me, this channel was my imposter syndrome. This is me getting out there to deal with it, right?
Right.
So Helga and I sat down and we're gonna do the book read thing, and I was like, you know what? I need this information. So do other people, and I'm gonna get this out there because I realize that I work better when I have an accountability system,
right?
And this makes me accountable. And I was like, but like nobody wants to watch this, which is my imposter syndrome speaking. And I was like, oh look, people actually do. Okay, cool. Right. And yeah, you're right. Every time I get on camera, like I may look like I'm cool and collected. I am sweating buckets over here. You can ask my ladies, like when I leave this studio, I am drenched in sweat because I'm so nervous that I'm going to mess up. And it's even more so when I'm doing stuff for other people. When I'm working for the Outlands or working for Astonites, I am more nervous and I'm going to screw up their thing than I am screwing. Like I can screw up mine all day long. Whatever, don't care.
Right.
Screw up one of theirs. I'm like, I look like an asshole. I can't do that. Like, oh yeah. So yeah, it doesn't get better. But yeah, I think part of that is recognizing. Right. So you and I both recognize we have that. We're looking into ways to fix it. And admitting it, right? And I think that's like they always joke the first step is identifying the problem, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. On that you have it. Don't be I'm going to make some false equivalencies here, but just to prove a point. Right. So it's not like don't be with it like you are about like some folks are about being on a keto diet or being doing CrossFit. You don't need to have it doesn't need to start every conversation with so I have an imposter syndrome.
Right.
So I do CrossFit because clearly I don't. But
I'm vegan, so it hasn't come up yet. It's surprising.
Right. But it's like the old joke is if you ever wonder if someone does CrossFit, just talk to them. They'll tell you in the first 40 seconds that they do CrossFit. But that's not what I mean by owning it. You don't have to say just so as we start this conversation, I have imposter syndrome. That's not what I'm talking about. But when someone asks you about it, or when you have that feeling of, or maybe after you go, well, I'm just doing the thing that's in front of me. And maybe that is your attitude, that you're just doing the stuff that's in front of you. But there's a reason that you've gotten to that outlook. And owning the fact that when that conversation comes up, don't try to hide the fact that you have an anxiety issue, or you have an imposter syndrome issue, or a self-doubt issue. Own that stuff up front as you go, because it helps you deal with them. It also helps normalize them in conversations so that you can deal with those mental issues. I don't personally consider them mental illnesses, but there are mental issues that you have to deal with. It identifies them up front, and it normalizes them in the conversation, and it becomes something that you talk about all the time, or without stigma, I should say, so that it allows them to be easier dealt with, and you don't have to feel ashamed. It takes the ashamed feeling out. There's a reason I don't read poetry on the show anymore, because you ask me to read something and all of a sudden the mild undiagnosed dyslexia I had when Bible Hibbert said fucking dyslexia should be spelled that way as an asshole.
It's the worst word. Yeah.
Yeah. The mild dyslexia I have comes out, so, which feeds into your anxiety, your self-doubt, and, because all of a sudden you're tripping up on stuff. So the only way to deal with it, and the reason you hear about it when it happens, is I have to own it, or it will affect me. Right. So
I want to cycle back to the thing you said towards the top of the show, and we'll close with this. That remember, you are someone's Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
And Earl Mortigan said this yesterday on Outlands Royalty. You're always going to be somebody's first crown, right? So in the SCA, whether you're crown or a peer or something, you will always be somebody's first crown, yes. First knight, first something, first lord. You are that to somebody. You are something.
And that is,
embrace that.
And that is terrifying sometimes.
Right. But I think embrace that. Take that on and go, you know what? I'm going to be the best at that thing. Right. I'm going to be the best king. I'm going to be the best knight. I'm going to be the best peer. I'm going to be the best lord, whatever. You're going to fail.
Yeah.
Accept that now, but continue to be the best.
Sorry about that.
You're good. All right, so go ahead.
Just the struggle here's the struggle. People talk about wanting to be a good peer or dealing with anything. Is be a better person. Try your best to be a better person today than you were yesterday.
Right.
And no matter what you're doing, you'll even when you fail at that, if you continue down that line, you'll continue to be a success.
Right.
You may not get all the things in the world that you need, but fewer people are going to think you're an asshole, and that's a win in and of itself.
Right.
So
there you go. All right. With all that being said, I have long since run out of coffee.
I'm not.
Oh wow. We've been talking. We've been talking a lot. You've been double fisting, so
Yeah.
Phrasing.
Right, phrasing.
So,
we don't.
Coming up on Kalbardr's Corner, I mentioned this earlier. In 2 weeks, I'll be joined by Lash Kinsey of the Black Company to talk about fringies. So this is a weird subject that's I had never heard of. It was very much not a Meridian thing, but it's apparently something that's very West-centric. That I recognize it exists, but the fringies are those outliers, people on the outside of the communities that just show up and do stuff, but are not part of that, the core group. It's something that Lash is super passionate about. That not only will we be having that show, we'll also be starting the Master Lash's Fantastic Fringies and where to find them. So we have a new interview show coming to Kalbardr's Corner sometime next month, where he's going to be basically doing an interview show of people that you've never heard of. They're just amazing at what they do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Looking forward to getting a little bit of different perspective on the world. It's not just a peer-like interview. It'll be some of those weird little dudes that are just doing stuff in their corners. And Lash is a very opinionated person. Yes. I'll say that. And he's right on a lot of things. I agree with him on a lot of stuff, but I also disagree with him on a lot of stuff. And I think that's important to note that you don't have to agree with someone on everything to have these conversations. So I'm looking forward to what he brings to that show into the whole series he's doing. So look forward to that. Also, of course, next Sunday, we'll be having the last episode of What Makes a Night. So Duke Sean and I will be on again to discuss what comes next, and we'll be joined by his knight, Duke Brian of Tarragon. Looking forward to completing my set of the Duke Sean lineage. So that's fun there. So tune in for that next Sunday as well. And let's see, there'll be one more show coming up that I've got to book the date for, but hopefully will be the following show that we'll talk about that next Sunday. Last but not least, if you want to support us, support Kalbardr's Corner and KK Productions, look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. And if you are a patron, I have your stuff. They'll be going out hopefully this week. And of course, if you want a sticker or some other cool stuff that we're going to be adding, look on Redbubble, search KK Productions, and we have KK Productions stickers and What Makes a Night stickers and Ask the Nights Live and a couple others on there. And there will be more coming. I think I'm going to make You're Somebody's Neil Armstrong sticker. That sounds like one I need. or get the banana pudding. I think that may be another one I need to tag in there. We'll talk, Ulrich.
That's fine.
All right. Well, Ulrich, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for doing this with me. You were a delight. And as Runa says, she was excited to see her two of her favorite bald bearded bad boys, I think is what she said.
But then she said I was like a nice guy or something. I'm not really sure where that. She's
not always right, but she's
okay.
Pretty close to right. So thank you for this. What's coming up on Hound and Stag? Anything?
This coming Monday on Hound and Stag, we have the Kingdom Shadowlands office on the How Shit Works show. For folks that don't know, that are Kalbardr's Corner viewers, the premise of our show is we look behind the scenes at how the offices and peerages and things work, so that the folks who aren't in those offices or not part of those orders can see how they work and kind of dispel some myths. I want to throw a quick thank you to you and the sisters and Dagmar for showing up last week and doing that special show that I wasn't on. Thank you so much for being there. You guys were absolutely fantastic. My apologies for not being there. But you guys were great. I actually watched that show twice because I wanted to. I missed. There's little bits that I missed because I was laughing because you guys were just a hoot. And a special thanks to Mistress Adriana for filling in for me on that one. And with everything, especially the the tech issues we had right at the very beginning when you throw things off.
Like Eric didn't show up till 5 minutes in his own show. Like whatever, it's
right.
fine.
Right. Adriana wasn't. You guys didn't know this. Adriana wasn't at her house. She was at a friend.
Right.
She was at some friends of ours' house for a little gathering. We were social distance gathering that we were doing. So she wasn't even in her own stuff. She was playing, going off of a little laptop. So it was really good considering all this. It was really good. Full stop.
It was a good show. Yeah, it was a good show.
Right. But no, that's what we have coming up. We're in the middle of a series on finishing up the series of officers. So this Monday is the Shadowlands office. We'll have Countess Dala and Her Majesty Ismay as our first time we have a repeat guest on as a guest and not as a co-host or a guest host. And then we'll do the Minister of Children and the Chronicler is the week after, and then the next week is the Parchment and maybe Historian if I can get Rourke on.
Rourke
and that'll finish our officers series up. And then we may have a new kind of show coming up after that. We'll see. Perhaps.
Ooh. Details later. So so look up Hound and Stag on Facebook. Hound and Stag presents. Amazing series. You guys are first of all fun to watch, and it's really entertaining to watch Ulrich get plastered by his guests. Because this is why I don't drink on shows.
Don't drink. There's no alcohol in my coffee.
Yeah, this is why I don't drink on my shows.
I
I would end up drunk. Because I watched the one with their Excellency Osprey, and Christine was mean to you.
They were mean.
So mean to you.
Anyway, people.
On that note, to all our viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. This has been an hour and a half of, I think, a really great conversation, and we appreciate you hanging in there. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, push the buttons down below. Push wherever they are. I don't know. Push the buttons. You're gonna stay at the. Anyways, can't sing that. I have to pay. I don't pay royalties here.
I didn't say anything. I'm just.
Anyways, make sure you subscribe. There will be stuff coming out this week for the 300 viewer subscription. I've got a gift basket I'm putting together, so look for that. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube because that's important. And we will catch you soon. This has been Kal and Ulrich in Kal-bardr's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.